All right, everybody. Well, good morning. It's been a few weeks since we last met, so welcome back, and we'll just go ahead and get started. Our agenda, just to kind of touch base on probably the same stuff that we similarly talk about most of the time, but just curious to, hear about what's going on with hiring and onboarding, and a lot of districts are giving increases across the state in the last few months. So has that been helping? Talk about a little bit about the new ELDT, if anybody's successfully had a trainee go through that process yet and what that looked like. And then talk a little bit about supply chain, because I think that's still a big thing. And I think down here in the Valley, we're seeing a lot of catalytic converters being stolen off of school buses. So just seeing how you guys are working around that, and anything else in the open comment section. So first and foremost, just anybody got any celebrations that they want to share? Just maybe some light at the end of the tunnel, right? We're kind of the final push here after spring break to get to the summertime. So Brian, you want to go first?
Yeah, celebration we've been doing a cohort where we've been involving other departments to train and get their CDL and DPS certification, so that we have a pool to tap from when we need sub drivers. And we've got 5 people that have their CDLs now and are getting their DPS hours, their classroom and their behind the wheel hours, with a 5th one on the way within the next week. So, I mean, that's been huge for us to be able to have some backup, some assistance.
Can you talk about a little bit how that process got started, and who, like, was that a district decision or just volunteers kind of saying, hey, we recognize that you need some help, and so we're willing to do this?
Yeah, I started several years ago trying to get a cohort, not necessarily for bus drivers, but at least for van drivers, to be able to give us some relief and everything. And with turnover and admin and everything, the process kind of starts over every time. But with the executive director leadership and that we have now, we've been able to get it through, and we crafted a letter and sent it out to the entire district for to find out who was interested in doing this program. And then we started with an original list of about 20 people, and it just like any time in transportation, if you start with 10, you usually end up with 2. So we got whittled down to 12 real quick, and then within the first couple of weeks, it dwindled down some more. But the 6 that we have that accepted and stayed with the entire process are pretty dedicated, and it's looking really positive. So we're going to start another one as soon as everyone in this group gets their certifications.
Nice. Is that school staff, or like more like custodians, grounds people, or maintenance workers?
We open it up to all classified staff. So food service, custodial, trades, and school office staff. So we have a couple trades, a couple people from HVAC, security personnel, and a couple of office assistants from a couple of the schools. So we've got a really pretty good mix.
Very good. It's awesome to hear when finally all hands on deck start helping out, and the willingness to want to do it, I think, is really cool. So very good. Any other? Go ahead, Steph.
Brian, would you mind if I reached out to you and picked your brain about how you got that started and some of the logistics?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I think it's programs like what you're doing that our members haven't thought of, or just don't have the energy. To be honest, everybody is tired. But I think if we present something like what you just did in a successful light, they will think, well, hey, why can't we do it? I mean, Jason and I were just brainstorming about Bullhead City being on the border, and it's examples like this, Brian, that if the school districts knew that it really wasn't that challenging, maybe a couple added steps to recruiting and training, I think they would feel like they could do it. So good job, and I'm going to reach out to you for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I would like to add another celebration too that kind of helped facilitate this. And that was adding a second dedicated safety trainer. So we have Felicia Lewis, who was our first that we actually had a dedicated position for a safety trainer. And we added a second one this year. And so Susanna Navarro is our second trainer. And the two of them work really well together. And have been doing a great job getting everybody coordinated and getting them trained appropriately.
Very good. Any other celebrations from anybody? Avery?
Yeah, well, here at Agua Fria, we just found out that the morning of the 17th on St. Patrick's Day, we were going to have the groundbreaking celebration for our new building.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be fun. Do a big media blast with that, and hopefully that media blast gets people that, you know, all these new developments out that way, because our new building is going to be off of Thomas and the 303. You know, there's a lot of new developments out there, a lot of new people moving in. Maybe that'll help us find some people that are interested in driving bus.
For sure, for sure. Even if you get one, I always say all the effort's worth it, even if you just get one person. So
Right.
anybody else on celebrations before we move on? Nope. All right. Must be a pretty lowly group, huh? Anyways, on the hiring and onboarding. You know, obviously Brian's not necessarily hiring new people, but getting some help there. But anybody who's raised their salary for bus drivers recently that have seen that raise has helped in an uptick in bringing new people in. I know we're competing in the private marketplace, but anybody want to talk to any success stories with that potentially?
We saw enough of an uptick here at Agua Fria that kind of it offset how many we were losing from retirement and just getting, you know, done with it with all the COVID stuff. So we kind of leveled off, but we haven't gotten enough to start trending in the positive yet.
Sure.
I still have, I think, 4 open routes right now every day.
Brian?
We haven't raised ours recently. You know, we raised ours a couple years ago. But I have lost a couple to other districts raising theirs. So somebody's having some success out there.
Yeah, I think Stephanie shared a term last couple weeks ago of unintended consequences, right? So while it's good for the immediate district and trying to hire outside people, it also has unintended consequence and, you know, hurting other districts neighboring nearby for people who want to leave one place to go to the next. So it's yeah, I can definitely feel that struggle with you guys.
Well, my hope has always been in raising the salaries is to make it known and for everybody to see that, I mean, people in this job, in this industry, need to be paid more across the board. I mean, with all that they're responsible for and the training and the certifications and everything that they have to have, it's a lot more for a lot less pay than what other jobs are receiving. I think it's just something across the board for the industry that needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw an article a couple weeks ago. There's a district in Texas that just went from like 18 to 25 bucks an hour. You know, and that was a big jump for them, right? I don't know where necessarily located. I think he said he was just right out of Dallas when I reached out to him, but you know, oddly enough, I mean, just, you know, that type of salary increase, I think to really push it over the mark of, you know, all the certifications, like you were saying, everything, all the, you know, requirements of the job, the split shift, you know, I mean, there's people and other entities or agencies around the state that, you know, they get shift differential for paying, you know, working second or third shift. So maybe, you know, maybe there should be something like a shift differential for, you know, kind of that, not necessarily hazard pay, but more or less something along those lines. I think it's interesting, right? I mean, I think that's really the root of the cause here is it's hard to compete at, you know, just barely above minimum wage, especially when most private companies are pushing their salaries up. I think, Steph, what was it that I shared with you? Another article that I saw Target in some areas was going to be pushing their rate of pay up to $24 an hour to go work at Target, so it's, how do you compete with that?
Well, or the school district that you were visiting this week was paying $15 an hour, and right across the street, the what was it, a fast food?
McDonald's.
Yeah, paid $1 more an hour. You can't pay that wage and retain quality, long-term staff.
Yeah, for sure. Good morning, Mr. Kissel. You have any celebrations? We were just sharing celebrations before you jumped on.
No, I'm sorry I was late. I was coming from a school site meeting, and so I thought I would jump in as soon as I could. But no, we're just working through a GPS conversion, and getting, that's been our biggest thing: student tracking and a GPS conversion, and it's going well. But no, tired, beat up a little bit, but yeah, still doing our thing.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Anybody else want to share just about their hiring? Anything going on, Patrick? I feel like, did you guys do a wage increase, or feel like you maybe were working on one?
Well, we did a wage increase last year. So our starting rate a year ago was $15.30. So they added for all existing drivers, they added $2.30 an hour to make drivers who are already hired 18. And then there was a percentage on that, and then they moved everybody from like a grade 9, and I don't know if you guys use grades or not, but they moved everybody from a grade 9 to a grade 12, which meant they actually, an entry level driver now makes more than my entry level mechanic, which, that's like it's like you said, it's $1 an hour more across the street at McDonald's. It's kind of, there's the unintended consequences of raising one classification over another.
Sure.
Just one of those things we've seen. And we're doing a $500 sign-on bonus after 90 days as well, for, they call them hard to fill positions. There's like 3 or 4 different positions within the district that qualify. Mechanics, bus drivers, and then there's a couple in other departments.
Does the district openly advertise that, like, out in the public, of that stipend or that sign-on bonus?
I don't know if it's really very highly advertised or not. I know some people have come on, with the understanding they would get that $500. But, for us, we're just kind of, I feel like we're standing still. I'm still down 25% of what I need to be.
Do you know if the district, just on the advertising piece, are you responsible for advertising, whether that's in the local media or the paper, or do you have like a communications team that handles that for the whole district?
Yeah, that's handled from the communications department. So they're actually running radio ads. I post, and some of you guys repost my posts on LinkedIn, everywhere else we can get it. But the radio seems to be the one that's between that and word of mouth. Those are the 2 biggest draws, at least at the moment.
Got it. Anybody else want to share about their maybe advertising strategies that maybe feel like they help a little bit, or something that you would think maybe is conventional or unconventional that seems to get people in the door?
We don't have any sign-on bonus. We didn't get a raise like most did, all that. But what we do, sorry about that. We have a referral program that's $500. So all of our teachers, all of our, our district, everybody's eligible. If they bring in a licensed school bus driver, then they get money. They can share that with that person if they want or not. But you know, let's face it, the job fairs and all that, they're just, you know, you get a bunch of interviews sometimes, but you know, you don't necessarily produce anybody that's going to be there a year later, especially if they're off your site and they realize when they get there that they're driving 30 miles and then doing a split shift, then doing, you know, all the things you spoke of. So, you know, I've asked them to reinvest in each other, reinvest into our staff. It hasn't yielded a ton. We've had a few. And I'm talking over the last, you know, year and a half. But yeah, there's nobody knocking down the doors or, you know, fighting, you know, I'm not, oh, wait, you know, 7:01 will open the doors for interviews. That ain't happening. So
We always had the analogy of there's not a line out the door of people trying to get in here. So
it ain't like Black Friday, you know, and everybody's like trampling over each other to get in,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely. So maybe a side question would be just of the people that are leaving, whether they're going to somewhere else or whatnot. I mean, what's the common reason of, you know, I mean, you probably can't work around retirement, but money for the most part. I see Eric saying money. Anybody else? I mean, do you see that they're leaving for more money in the private sector, whether that's driving or, you know, just going to work at, say, Target or, you know, maybe you know, an office type setting where they're, I don't know. I mean, the mortgage industry is going crazy right now. So a lot of people are getting into that business.
No, the majority of ours have been, the majority, I mean, I can't think of anything but have been either to another one of you guys for the sign-on bonus and the retention bonus and the more dollars per hour, or I've lost a couple. You know, the guys, you know, a lot of your drivers will drive the tour buses or whatever. I had one, what they did with him, you know, he drove tour buses over breaks. He drove them once in a while on the weekend, and they offered him like $5,000 or $7,000 if he left right then and came full time, and offered him, you know, his higher wage as a tour bus driver. But here's the other thing I also want to share with people, or maybe you guys could share. The funny thing that I'm seeing is, yeah, you know, he left. He's now on his 4th job since he left for that job. So they dangled the bait and they got him to jump, and they, you know, but he's on literally his 4th job now. Matter of fact, they're not, I don't see them on here, but well, one of you is on here. You know, I saw the reference check on the guy. You know, I mean, he's fine now. He's talking about returning to school bus driving after he'd gone and done some other things. And you know, the reality is, you know, school bus drivers are a wonderfully unique individual that understands that, you know, they're working with children and they're being exposed to some horrific situations, you know, things that would sadden your heart. And you better damn care. You know, you can't clock in and do this job and not care about kids. I mean, you have your drivers that say they don't, or, hey man, I'm a tough guy. And then you watch a video and they're singing the wheels go round and round on the bus with their preschoolers, you know. And you know, the problem is, you know, we taught people how not to work for a year and a half, 2 years. We paid people to stay home. We paid people to work 6 hours on a campus and manage one classroom. And it's going to be a while before we change that environment, that, you know, that culture back to, you got to go and work for a living. And but all I'm saying, Jason, is just that, yeah, the majority of people I've lost are to the other people on this call or whatever. Now we're starting to see this. I'm starting to get several of them back. Well, when I say get several, I've got one back, and then I've got a couple other have called and said, hey, would you take me back?
Grass wasn't greener.
Yeah. So, you know, that's, you know, there's no magical answer, but what I will say this is, some of you guys got me in trouble, man, because what happened was, and Jason, you know them very well. You know, they put a large amount of money into it, and they put a annual retention thing. And then my boss runs into your CEO, my CEO or CFO runs into your CFO, and they say, how you doing? Oh, we're still short X amount of drivers, and we're cutting routes to fit our crew versus offering service to fit the need. And so my place just, pulled the reins and whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, I had some momentum, but
Yeah.
after talking to others, and, to be honest with you, I think that's true though. I mean, I think, I saw Dave was on here, Phoenix Union and some of those that went early and made that push. Dude, they're not sitting there, Katie barring the doors, and Kyrene and Cartwright going to a 24, a 12-month schedule. I lost to her. The director's gone, and I don't know what else is going on over there. But in other words, I'm glad we didn't knee-jerk react. I want to do as much as I can for my people, but you mentioned it earlier. My biggest problem is we have not addressed the associates who we continue every year the minimum wage bumps up. They get a bump because the minimum wage hits them in the ass. And we haven't even begun. And you want to talk about driver experience, dude, the driver who's got a special ed bus with an associate on, helping to monitor and supervise those kids and buckle preschoolers in and da. Dude, that's driver experience. And nobody wants to talk about the associates. Nobody wants to talk about the mechanics. Nobody wants to talk about your damn dispatcher. That's your lifeblood in there, that room in there. If that's not solid in there and things aren't good, your whole crew feels that, and the driver experience is drastically affected.
All part of the culture, right? I mean,
but that's what I'm saying. And Patrick said it best, and I'm proud of my district that they haven't overreacted. And it may have helped stabilize the whole picture a little bit. But the reality is that when the White House asked my superintendent about the drivers and he sent me their questionnaire, I took the opportunity to write a paragraph about you can't just address driver experience by just throwing dollars at it. You have to address the whole picture. Otherwise, you lose good dispatch. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't that mechanic just go drive a bus versus being responsible as a mechanic if they can make more money? So all I'm saying there is just that, dude, I don't have the answer. And I love each and every one of you and the amount of experience you bring to these calls in our organization. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that just throwing money at this one position has not fixed the problem. And I think respect for whole, I hear you, Jason, you're always campaigning for, driver wages and stuff. And I appreciate that, and Stephanie as well. But, truthfully, we have to look at the whole picture, right? Because if there's not equity, you can pay a driver some money, but they're not going to deal with a whole lot of crap. If it sucks, they don't want to deal with it. So that's all I'm saying is my 2 cents is just that I know the drivers are absolutely critical, and there's no doubt that bus doesn't roll with them. We got to do everything we can. But what I think we found is that our efforts while ignoring the overall driver experience, I think we've all noticed some fallout from that. It didn't bring the value that we necessarily thought it would, at least long-standing, value. It definitely gets people through the front door immediately or real quickly when you get that buzz, but it's tough, man. Holding on.
Yep. Anybody got some rebuttal for that?
Well, I will point out, gosh, you made some really great points. I'll point out that if you have, 10 schools in a geographic area and 9 of them are struggling, but 1 is consistently weathering these issues, we maybe as a community need to ask, what are those districts doing right? They weathered COVID. They didn't lose drivers. They're fully staffed. I know a handful of them around the state when everybody around them is desperate for staff, but they aren't. What are they doing different? I feel like it's almost worth exploring. What is their culture? What are their benefits? What are their values? What are they offering that is keeping their staff there and fully functioning? I think that's a question that could be asked, because Eric, you made some really good points. It's not just about bus drivers, but what's the whole,
Yeah, definitely. I think, you made some valid points, especially about the monitors, right? They should be right there, your mechanics. I mean, mechanics are almost equally as responsible for the safety of that bus that's going out on the road, you know, and if they're not caring about their job, or you don't have any mechanics at all, right? Now you have buses that are just sitting there because they can't be used, and you know, pretty discouraging, especially when they need to drive, right? So if they're saying, well, I'm getting paid less than a bus driver, but I'm still basically a bus driver because I'm driving a route, that makes it pretty difficult also. I saw an interesting article or a quote that I'll just share. This was in our office the other day. It was from Ronald Reagan. Says, by working together, pooling our resources and building on our strengths, we can accomplish great things. And I think that's interesting because I kind of came in one of the podcasts like last month, I think we were kind of talking about this topic of we're all close. Like, why couldn't we start sharing resources or trying to figure out what we can do to help each other out? Not necessarily stealing from one another, but potentially our schedules might align, especially where we're close enough, you know, potentially, you know, Brian and Eric, maybe even Carrie, because you guys are all kind of centrally located. I see Christian in here also. You know, are there times where we have drivers that are either on a layover that we could potentially have an IGA or a MOU that we could, you know, say, hey, you have these drivers and I have these vacancy routes, and they just happen to kind of align with each other. Could you help me out, cover these routes, you know, maybe on a daily basis or a monthly basis, something like that. I think the more that we, to Eric's point, we don't have the answers, right? But I think we have to get to a point where we have to start creatively thinking how we can start sharing and pooling resources, you know, to figure that out. You can use the example of what the trust does, right? We're a pooled insurance, we're a pool of money that all the districts pool their money together to provide insurance for each other. Why couldn't we do something similarly to, you know, to share and pool resources for transportation? I think that might be, you know, again, everybody's scared because they're like, hey, you know, they're going to find out that they have this great operation over here. If maybe they make a little bit more money or they advertise in a different way. And I really like what they have to offer because they have new buses, whatever that might be like, you know, but we have to figure out how to avoid stealing from each other. You know, I don't know that there is a way to prevent that, but maybe a way to potentially help pool those resources together where we can help each other out instead of just, you know, banging our head against the wall trying to figure out what's what. All right, we'll leave that there and move on to ELDT. So that went into effect last month, February 7th. Anybody successfully moved a trainee through the new process? Anybody want to share about that? Maybe Brian, since you're training new people right now, are they working on that new ELDT material?
No, we've just been using our own material, and Raymond, Felicia, and Susan have been coordinating with Stephanie with new material and things coming, but we haven't used the ELDT.
Got it. Anybody else hiring, or not necessarily hiring, but actually have somebody in training since February 7th? See some head shakes in the no.
So I have one that actually just got her permit. So we'll start the process with her when we come back from spring break.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. It'll be maybe next meeting we'll be able to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's, I assume, is all set up as a training facility and was able to get their trainers or admin staff to help get the facility set up and ready to rock and roll as a training facility. Any issues with that?
So I know we're set up, but we still don't have that
Thank you. Can you send my
training
assistant out,
number.
please?
I think it was that Stephanie had mentioned that we should see on that website. We still don't have that assigned to us yet, though.
Okay. So still some bugs, it sounds like, working out there.
Yeah,
Patrick?
ours is set up, and yesterday afternoon I was working with the trainers so that they can enter their results from training, but we haven't had anybody that we need to put that in yet.
Very good. Steph, you want to share any of the maybe just general questions that you've been receiving this week, just to maybe help, I guess, be a precursor to stuff that people might see coming up as they get people going?
Sure. One of the common things that I'm getting is when folks registered their locations, they didn't necessarily click everything that they teach, like Class B, theory and behind the wheel, and then passenger endorsement, theory and behind the wheel. It's quite a process, and you have to click on many things to get through the process. And when one particular district went to have their driver get tested, the third-party tester, and I got on the line to discuss what they were seeing, and it turns out that the district registered themselves for everything except for one of the endorsements. Well, the trainee needed to test for both endorsements and the Class B, and the third-party tester was saying, no, I'm getting a red X. They don't qualify. And so we had to work the backwards process and go back to the beginning. Okay, what did you register for? When you do the drop-down box, does it show Class B, passenger endorsement, and school bus endorsement, and then both the theory and behind the wheel? And so I've learned that just one uncheck of a box, forgetting one thing at the end, will not show that viable candidate ready to test. It was just a matter of finding which box needed to be checked. And as soon as they went back in and did it correctly, the third-party tester, oh, there he is, he's ready to test. So, you're not going to blow up the program at all. It's just a matter of walking back. Okay, what is it that I did wrong that it's not taking the information? It's pretty user-friendly. It's really time consuming. If you are hiring me for Class B, passenger, and school bus, you have to enter me 6 times, one for each of the Class B, passenger endorsement, and school bus endorsement. And then you have to do it each time for theory, and behind the wheel. So they made it easy to do. They just didn't combine anything, and it's a little labor intensive, but the trainers, it's a very straightforward.
Very good. I'm sure that we will probably learn more in the coming months from, people who've run into issues or maybe some more or less user errors. So where we can all help each other, I think that's important. Anybody else with ELDT? Otherwise, we'll move on to supply chain, because I know that's hurting on the bus range, buying buses, getting parts, getting supplies. Nope. All right. Well, anybody want to share their supply chain woes? Anything that's going on there as far as, have you been able to order buses? I know you can get an order in, but it's probably more on when the delivery date's going to be, right? They're anxious to take your money, or at least take your order and get that solidified. But anybody been placing orders, maybe even with the electric bus grant money that's going on out there? Anybody had access to that? Carrie, you want to go first?
So we do have order for buses, which is okay, because they should be in somewhere towards the end of this year. But my issue has been white fleet, and more so like my refrigerated trucks. I just got notification that they won't even start building on those until 2023.
Wow.
So, and we placed that order last year in September. So it's like it's just a supply issue and them not being able to do anything. And she said the earliest they have right now, based on the information I was given to her, is they won't even start on our trucks until August of 23.
August of 23.
August of 23.
Wow.
Who's that with?
That's with RWC.
So on the international chassis?
International trucks, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering who you were having that with.
Yeah.
Well, and I just talked to one of the bus vendors last week, and he was really upfront and said, if a school district comes to us right now, it's 2 years. If you're being told, oh, we can get that to you next year, they're getting your money and they're ordering it, but you're not going to get it for 2 years, which, I didn't realize what a pickle everybody's going to be in vehicle wise.
which I think that would be even more of a pickle because typically you have to obtain your purchase within the fiscal year of what you're purchasing, right? Eric, I see heads shaking yes, and Eric shaking his head no.
You can just roll it over. You can roll it over. Don't let people tell you
right.
that.
Yeah, but there are some purchasing departments that I think are.
Yeah,
are
but somebody
very
better talk to them. Ain't nothing landing in the same year.
sure.
Now, Stephanie, who's telling you? I'm being told about 8 months for my
I'll
bus.
answer your question if you want to give me a call.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not ordering from them anyway, so it don't matter.
Yeah. So as far as bus purchases go, but what are you seeing, or what are any of you guys seeing on the maybe just sustaining your day-to-day operations with tires and parts and
We're
anything
running
just
out of
keeping
tires over here at
yeah.
Agua. We've had an order in for a few months, and I think I just checked with my shop supervisor this morning, and I think we're still 3 months out on our tires.
On rubber, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody been running into Patrick? You want to touch before I ask?
Yeah, we're not running into any tire issues. We're using a vendor here who I believe is across the state. So, but yeah, we get tires as soon as we need them. Like we can replace tires the same week.
That's good.
I also just found out we've been using Commander tires, which I want to get rid of that. And apparently our whole fleet's on them. So I need to work on switching the entire fleet over to new tires, because Commander, I just don't like them.
I'm not being told I have any tire delays. I just put about 3 buses worth were, 2 full and 1 steer rotate, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, and there's not any reason to believe they're going to be delayed. I have been having some trouble on some AC belts and, little things here and there, but, I beat our vendor up bad enough that they went out and found some somewhere in the country and brought them in, that were on a shelf. I mean, I'm like, that's fine if you can't get them from the manufacturer. Somebody's got 10 on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Get me a belt or else. And, they've had some success that way. Matter of fact, there was one that everybody was being delayed on. And I just told them, give me the one I need, no stock, and take care of as many of our partners as you can, instead of filling our order. Things like that, just being conscious that, everybody needs this stuff. So, but I mean, often you can find it out there, you know what I mean? If you got to go outside your normal network, but, most of it's on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah. Are you finding that the general parts stores are able to supply more versus what the, bus specific parts are, coming either from the bus vendors? Are you finding that one's better versus the other, or one's taking longer versus the other?
Hit or miss, hit or miss. It just depends obviously we take the belt down and put it up against belts that they have on the shelf, right? I mean, we'll do that if we're being told there's a delay. And sometimes they can help out and sometimes they can't. We've been pretty fortunate, switching our AC to Thermo King. I don't know why they've been able to supply compressors and, anything that we need, and we haven't needed a lot. It's probably one of the better decisions I've made over the years. Our Thermo King setup, dealing with a guy here in the Valley that deals specifically with our level of heat, humidity and all that. And so far the support's been pretty good as far as parts and that, it's been like, we had a Bluebird belt on a Bluebird AC on an older bus that they were telling me they didn't have. It was like, you better find a belt. Dude, I'm not gonna have a bus down because the belt's down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, things like that. But I don't know if necessarily, I've heard battery shortages and we've been able to come up with batteries. But again, sometimes you have to step out of your preferred brand or your preferred vendor or something. But so far we've been limping along, as far as that goes,
Good. Anybody had catalytic converter theft in their yard? Another
In my short
yes.
time at Kyrene, we had 13
Yeah.
in one go it was probably over winter break when it happened, but had a nice, neat little hole cut in the back fence, and 13 of the spare buses that parked along that fence were hit.
Eric, I saw your hand raised. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. We, matter of fact, 3 times over. We now bring in security for all the long breaks in the yard. We bring in a security guard, overnight now, because we have video. I mean, I watched them do it. It was real nice watching how they did it. I mean, it does help in the sense that you know where to kind of secure, right? I mean, how they came in, how they went out and all that. I mean, that was nice and good pictures of them. We brought security in, and then they went over and hit, Brian's yard. He went down the street and hit Brian over at Fairfax one time. So, it's just that's a big business right now. And yeah. And it doesn't have to be over break, right? I mean, it'd be a Tuesday night, but we're bringing in a security guard over winter, fall, spring breaks. We have a security guard on site.
I was hearing a big delay in getting those replaced. You're running into that.
Yep.
So makes it pretty difficult. Any other supply chain, maybe even issues not bus related, just getting other things in, cleaning supplies or anything like that, whether it's for your yard or fuel, anybody running into fuel. I was running into fuel issues because they didn't have enough pump truck. I needed a pump truck. They couldn't do gravity feed because we moved our fuel tank up above the ground. So they needed a pump truck to go in, and they couldn't secure pump trucks within, a couple days time. I had to put in an order almost like 2 weeks in advance for them to get me an order.
Hey, also, Jason, just on that catalytic converter thing, sorry to step back, but, just be careful too, because some of the aftermarket catalytic converters don't play well with the vehicle, because I know there's more of those readily out there. But some people are having issues, if you go aftermarket, you just can't clear that engine code. You can't, clear code, stuff like that. But, so just really inquire, really talk to them, whoever you're talking to, about bringing those in, whether or not, or, at least make them warranty it that it's either going to work or you're going to replace it, and then, whatever labor or whatever. But yeah, it's been, because there's a million of them needing to be replaced all the time. So
yeah, no, that's a valid point. Good point, especially for playing with the DPF filters and all the DFs, that has to go into the emissions, specifically in the diesels. So I think Kyrene's buses were propane, but yeah, all good valid points. But any other issues on supply chain that anybody wants to share?
Really just with our older buses in the fleet, some of the parts that just might not be manufactured anymore. So you got to find something that works. That's the only other issue that we're running into out here.
Do you find that you pool those resources by calling your neighbors and seeing if they have, any extra stock sitting around?
Absolutely. One of our mechanics came to us from Litchfield, and there's one of our buses needs a motherboard for and he's like, oh, I think they have one at Litchfield. So he's stopping by there this morning on his way in to take a picture of it to make sure it's the right one, and we'll do a deal to see if we can buy it off of them.
Yep. Good idea. All right, we'll take 5 minutes and just open the floor to anybody who wants to talk about anything.
Yeah, I do want to mention this. So, and I think this is really relevant. In another meeting, I'm on this National Advisory Council thing. And I don't want to say what, because we're not supposed to, but I mean, it was kind of a side topic and he shared it outside of the meeting. But I actually have a guy out in New York. He's over about 600 mechanics, and they're finding some success with these DEF issues. That the DEF head and sending unit isn't necessarily the problem. I know we've all been waiting on those. Everybody's had a bus sitting down for weeks waiting for a new sending unit for DEF. And if you haven't, God bless you. But I'm saying that they really believe they've isolated the problem down to a couple relays providing power to that system and not the sending unit or the head itself. And so we're doing some, it's backwoods or backcountry little tests, and they're actually utilizing a international relay and a forward relay that they're having tremendous success when they have that DEF failure with the heads or the sending unit. So, I mean, obviously we're going to share more out if that turns out to be true and holds true. But I was super excited when Jason was talking about, we think we found an answer, and it's with the power being supplied to the unit, not the unit itself, because we're all waiting to warranty. And then after, our warranty's up, we're paying, $2,000-3,000 a unit, and that it sucks. And I'm hoping we have some success there, but like I said, a very credible source, a really smart guy. He, not me, I didn't figure anything out, but he literally they're looking at those sending unit, the relays that are sending power to the unit as the issue, not the unit itself. So hopefully we get some answers there. Matter of fact, we've got one of the manufacturers have committed to testing the theory. So hopefully we've got some money behind it.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have a better answer there.
And I wouldn't call it backwoods, I would call it science.
Yes, it's science. Yeah, right. Right. Science.
Right on. Thank you for sharing. Any other just open floor, general, anything that anybody wants to talk about?
Did you guys announce Avery's promotion?
We did not. Yeah.
Well, I will say publicly, congratulations, Avery Sponsler. Avery was one of the routing specialists at Agua Fria, went over as a supervisor to Kyrene, stuck them in the rear end and left right away. But hey, you got to do you, brother. But is now the director of transportation out at Agua Fria. So he sits in the same forum, but as a new director. So
and I think he worked. Did he work under you at Glendale L? So,
I think I hired him into the industry at one point many years ago. And
about 11 and a half years ago, I started at Glendale with Kissel as my boss. And I've stuck it out this far.
Yeah, I'm really proud. I was like, man, there you go, Avery, go get some.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Always good to see good people.
Go ahead. Been an interesting first week. We started off this morning with a gas leak in our shop and had to evacuate that building. And,
that's initiation, brother. You get to go through it now.
Well, they say trial by fire, right?
Right. Luckily, it was just gas, no fire this time.
Yeah, no fire yet. No fire.
Just a reminder, if you guys, as we close it up here, registration is open for TAA. The whole webpage has been revamped, so if you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at it, go ahead and check out the updated look to the webpage. Hope to see everybody up in Flagstaff this summer. We're going to be all emergency management theme. So there's going to be tabletop exercises, and kind of all the topics are going to be centered around emergency management and transportation emergency response, just how we respond to accidents and incidents and any types of emergencies. I was just thinking, kind of reflecting today, spring break is next week for most of you, or the week after. And I think 2 years ago, right, we kind of went into a super long extended spring break all the way through the summer. So, just kind of time flies, right? And here we are, and 2 years later, kind of almost hopefully wrapping up COVID and kind of getting back to some normalcy. So it's good to see, but that's kind of my 2 cents on what I have to open the floor. Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and let you guys get back to your Friday afternoons. Nothing? All right, everybody. Well, enjoy your weekend and your spring breaks if they start next week. And if not, hopefully everybody has a quick week to get into their spring break. So we'll target probably the Friday, I think, after Easter, I think is the third Friday of April for the next meeting. Feel free to send the invites as you get them. You know, we'd like to have more discussion and more people part of these. So if you see, see people who don't have their names on these invites and should, feel free to include them in these discussions. So, all right, take care and happy March. Adios.